On today's edition of the Respectful Divorce Podcast, Camille Milner talks with Brenda Bridges, a certified divorce coach in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the author of Oh Shit, I'm Getting Divorced, the guide to keeping your dignity and dollars.
Today on the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we have Brenda Bridges with us. Thank you for joining us today, Brenda.
Thank you for having me today. I'm happy to be here.
And Brenda, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, before we dive into the specifics about your newly published work.
So I'll go back a bit to tell how I landed where I am. So I became a financial advisor at the urging of my financial advisor, who had been recruiting me for close to a decade to do that work. About a year and a half into that, my husband came home one day and said he wanted a divorce. He pretty much said, I'm done. There's no glue. I'm not doing therapy. It doesn't work. Now leave. That was the intro to the world of divorce, which was really a tipping point in my life, and it redirected me to what I do now. So we went through divorce under the collaborative process, although now that I've learned more and in retrospect, it was not as collaborative as always meant to be, knowing that every divorce is different. But what it did end up being is super expensive, really contentious, drawn out, significant number of mistakes in the process, in the final decree. And when that was done, I looked around and said, there's got to be a better way, and started to get myself smarter about divorce and the divorce process. So I first became a CDFA, so Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, because I was already a financial advisor. Mm-hmm. Mistakes that were made in our agreement were significant financial mistakes, and just thought, we can do better. Did that first. And then as I started working with people just on their finances, I felt, at least for me and my clients, that it needed more of a balance to the emotional part of the process, because divorce is so emotionally challenging and mentally exhausting and different, because it's usually all new. Even if someone's been divorced before, I find it's new because it's a different marriage, different process, different time. So I became a certified divorce coach to kind of balance out helping people make good financial decisions while addressing the emotions and the process that they were going through. So they weren't as, I guess you could say, confused or agitated about it. So I'm not a big believer in the think logically, not emotionally train of thought, because I don't think it's realistic.
It doesn't fit in divorce very well.
No, I am a big believer in understand those things that are impacting your decision making. And as long as you're taking those into account, then you're more likely to have a better outcome that suits you. So did that. And then I became a mediator. And then my last step on that divorce education road was to become certified as a collaborative neutral in collaborative practice. So that was kind of my educational path. And as I've evolved out of doing primarily acting as a financial advisor, let's say, and almost all of my work is now in divorce and in mediation primarily, but trying really hard to bring collaborative to this area. It's just not really done where I live, where in Chicago, it had a really good standing.
Well, let me just inspire you a little bit. It's been about 18 years ago that I went to the umpteenth Jillian training that I think I went to in collaborative, because Texas was very active even in the early days. We had some of the pioneers here who were still pioneers and working in the group. But I went to what they called an intermediate training in Houston, and it was a team model, and there were a couple of people from San Antonio, and they were very discouraged because it just hadn't really caught on in San Antonio. And now San Antonio is one of our most vibrant, robust, collaborative communities in the state. They are incredible. So I think sometimes it just takes a little time and to get a little traction.
I agree. And I think it's a combination of people understanding it and knowing to ask for it.
Yes. It's a longer conversation than a billboard.
Yeah, yeah. And then being able to then find professionals who can actually do it. And in my experience, you need to be trained in collaborative to do collaborative well.
Mhm.
And when someone who's used to litigating says, oh, yeah, I can do that too, I've seen it go south really fast. So
Well, I don't know how it is in Tennessee. I'm not familiar with what you all have in terms of a statute, but of course, Texas was the first state that got a statute in 2001, and then it was rewritten in 2011 and passed, incorporating certain components of the national law. Once that went into effect in 2001 and then in 2011, it really gave us some grounding, and yet lawyers still and other neutrals still say, oh, it's in the statute, so I don't need any special training. And that couldn't be less correct. It takes lots of special training.
yeah, I agree. In Tennessee, it was passed in 2019, I believe, and it does not require collaborative training to practice collaborative.
Yeah, ours doesn't even.
I just really don't know how one would do it effectively without learning. It's an entirely different skill set. Like the law is law, but it's just a different approach.
Yeah, it's a complete paradigm shift. That's the correct word for it. And those of us that were at the very beginning in around 2000 that were doing it, we were learning without training, learning on the job. And those were not near, some of them worked out, but they weren't nearly as smooth or well done as the ones that we did after we began having the formalized training and everybody was on the same page, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So, how does being a divorce coach differ from being a financial professional?
The financial part, I look at more, it's like troubleshooting and problem solving, kind of putting a puzzle together, looking at all the different pieces of their financial situation and really hoping they understand it and looking for mistakes, because not everything someone agrees to can be done. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that several times. So that's the CDFA hat I look at as it's telling a story with the numbers so that both parties can agree, come to a conclusion, and know what they're facing moving on. In the coaching aspect of it, I look at it twofold. Like part of it is managing the process with people so that they feel heard, empowered, and in control. So as opposed to, again, litigation, because that's always the backdrop, right? In litigation, they're going to get scheduled when they fit into their court's calendar. And their attorney will, as they should, right, pay attention to them when it's required by the court calendar. So they're not going to spend a lot of time working on it generally, or their case, until something is looming. There's a deadline looming. There's a hearing. There's some kind of mark that they're going to try to meet. And that's really hard for people to understand. And it also, I think, gives a sense of lack of control because they really don't have any. They're at the mercy of the system and what's going to happen next. So when I work with clients in litigation, it's helping manage them through that and understanding that it has its own pace and how they are able to live within the process and with the process as they're going through litigation. If I'm working as a mediator or in collaborative, a lot of that process management is the same, but it's more empowering to them. You know, do you have some deadlines you're trying to reach? Are you both on the same page as far as the deadlines and the process go? And
in my experience, the court just can't care about that. They've got a whole other list of goals, such as state statistics that they're living under. And so they
have full dockets.
Right. And I think court is one of the most inefficient machines ever available to anybody. And collaborative on its worst day, or mediation on its worst day, is much more efficient than the litigation process.
Well, when you think of it from mediation and collaborative, you are always working on that client. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to court and waiting until it's your turn, and sometimes you never get to your turn and you're rescheduled, you're spending a lot of money for professionals that are waiting.
Yes.
They're there for you and it's being billed to you, but you are kind of in a holding pattern you're paying for. Whereas truly mediation and collaborative, if you're being billed, there's time spent on your case.
And on the litigation, you're always, as the lawyers, getting ready, and sometimes the forensic accountants too, or the mental health professionals who are going to testify. From the start of a litigation case to the end of it, you are getting ready for court, which 85 to 95% of them will not go. And in collaborative and mediation, you are working on a quality and more quality settlement. So the perspectives are completely different. So how did you end up writing your book? Tell me about that. And would you tell us the title of it?
The title of the book is Oh Shit, I'm Getting Divorced, The Guide to Keeping Your Dignity in Dollars. And that was not the original title. When I went through my divorce, my mantra was dignity and grace, dignity and grace, dignity, like that. Those were my words to myself. I did not always do that. I came to this book knowing all the mistakes I made and hoping to help other people not make them or as many as I did. So the original name was How to Divorce with Dignity and Grace. And when we put it out there and tested it, it did not resonate. Because when people find out they're getting divorced, they don't jump right to, how am I going to do this with dignity and grace? It's like, oh, shit, I don't know what to do. Where do I start? What is happening? Exactly. So after doing some testing, we ended up with this title, which still sometimes makes me go, but it makes me a little uncomfortable. But it really was the feeling people seemed. Everyone goes, oh, yeah.
And a lot of the books that are written on this subject have similar titles, but there is nothing else out there that's got a title quite like yours. It catches your attention.
Well, the idea is, I think that a lot of divorce mistakes can be alleviated, avoided, if you're thoughtful at the beginning. And we're not necessarily encouraged to be thoughtful at the beginning. At least in my community here, and in many, many others that I either have experience with or hear of, the hair trigger is, oh, if you're the one who wants to get the divorce, you got to serve your partner immediately. You know, the soap opera version of You've Been Served. And both parties are at a race to hire an attorney. And I think we're missing steps, because some attorneys might be really brilliant for one person and not the best match for another.
Exactly.
And some process, like collaborative, is not for everyone. It's not a one size fits all, but neither is mediation, neither is litigation. So I started with the thought that if someone's going to face divorce, whether their partner wants it or they're the one who wants it, know your options before you jump in and get yourself in a scenario that you might not need. You know, I've had people come to me after they've hired attorneys and paid the retainer fee. Yeah. And say, oh, now we want to mediate. And I'll ask who the attorney is, and we'll talk a little bit and basically ask them what their attorney's opinion is, because they've engaged them already. And they'll say, oh, they don't know. Like, well, you need to have that. You need a relationship where you can talk with your professionals first and foremost. And in some cases, I know that attorney will say, absolutely not. You're not going to mediate, because they love to litigate. And they are very, very much on the page of, I'm going to win for you as much as I possibly can. And people going in don't necessarily know that winning is going to cost them 20 grand or more in 2 years of their life. You know.
So let's talk just a minute about my point of reference, of course, is Texas, and we have the very archaic caucus method of mediation, where there is a neutral mediator that goes back and forth by shuttle mediation. Yep. But each client has a lawyer there, and our courts now have embraced that every case has to go to mediation before they get a final hearing. And that's not every case, but that is generally the rule. How is that laid out in Tennessee?
So we are much the same, but I'm trying to bring a different method to the community, and just let people know that it's available to them, because it's exactly the shuttle method. It's back and forth. two attorneys and usually an attorney mediator are playing let's make a deal between rooms. People tend to not be prepared. They're told, no, we don't prepare for this. We just go in and see if you can make a deal.
And so back to your book, how did you come to write the book? Why did you write the book?
I wrote the book to help people at the beginning of the process walk through their choices thoughtfully and mindfully, specific to their situation, so that they're not hiring Aunt Sally's lawyer because he did a really good job for her. They're rather thinking, what do I need in an attorney? What are my goals for my life? What process best suits me? So it's really first talking through, I call it 3 Ps. Figure out your purpose. What are your goals after this divorce? Because so many people look at it, the divorce is the finish line, and it's not. It's the starting line for the rest of your life. What do you want that to look like? Figure out your purpose. Then you figure out your process, what best fits you. And then you figure out your professionals, so they support those other 2 things. And then the rest of it is really talking about family decisions that you'll need to make and different ways to approach that. And then financial decisions that you'll need to make and different ways to approach that.
And as a divorce coach and a CDFA, one of the frustrations that I think you have hit right on the head is people see the divorce as the end game. How do you help them change their thinking and shift into realizing that's not the end of their lives? They've got a whole nother life, but that's not something that happens easily. And it sounds like you've got some tips for people that may be in that position or some suggestions.
I mean, the broad suggestion is really to stay future focused because it isn't the end of your life, to try to put yourself out there. Think about when your little kids are in your high school and you're going to college and you're dreaming about what you're going to be, or before you got married and you were dreaming about what life was going to be like. Dream. Have some picture in your mind. I'll have people do a vision board. There's actually a vision board link in the book, but do a vision board that's more of a practical. And I don't mean like a vision board. You're going to own a private island in a jet and,
a realistic one.
Yeah. What's important to you, and focus on that. And when you find yourself needing to make decisions, focus on that. And are you steering towards it, or are you doing things that are either counter or going to disrupt it? And it's okay if you mean to, maybe your goals shift. So stay tuned into that. But if they do, then you should just still try to track your actions to where you want to end up. I think another really important thing is get support that's appropriate wherever you can. So there was an attorney in Chicago who would call it the Greek chorus, where people will fall into this cohort of those getting divorced or post-divorce who just can't let it go.
Yes.
If you find yourself going into that, then you're going to get stuck too.
And
it's really common because it's enticing to have that, like, oh, poor thing. Yes, it's not fair. It's not right, but it's not productive for people.
And you can get stuck in that, and it hurts your kids because then your kids are dealing with you the rest of their lives, and you're not enjoying the rest of your life because you're stuck in permanent victimhood.
Yeah, you're not living, you're not making choices. You are kind of reliving the past or mistakes of the past or what have you. I think, and other things are to find tools that work for you. Are there things that during your divorce you set aside, or during your marriage, actually, you set aside that you love to do? And I think often people have this. Reconnect with that. Try to carry that through. So you've got a thread of something that's future-based that you used to love and might love doing again. Mine was painting. That was something for me to look forward to picking up as I moved past divorce. Other people might have, who knows what, hiking, gardening, but whatever your jam is, whatever your thing is, try to build things like that into your life that help you move forward, build people into your life that uplift you. And it sounds really woo-woo and corny, but it makes a world of difference.
Well, I've done for probably 25 years, a little different iteration of that, but not unlike what you say. Is I would say, rewind back to when you were saying, what do I want to be when I grow up? There
Mhm.
were some dreams you left on the table when you married, and everything goes a different direction than your original dream may have been. And it does take people a little while to sort of debride and get back to that dreaming stage of
Mhm.
what do I want to be. And you don't have to grow up till you're 50 or 60 or 70 if that's the situation you're in, or you grow up again. And I think your book is just wonderful to help people. I love the alliteration of purpose, process, and professionals. That's just perfect to help people.
Another P.
Yes, to help people begin to organize their thoughts and not feel like everything is in such freneticism and chaotic.
Right.
Because then they not only feel that the system is out of control, but they're out of control.
Mhm. And it helps structure it so people are thinking about what they're doing next, is my hope. Because if you start out aggressively, walking that genie back into the bottle is probably not going to happen. If you serve your spouse while they're, on their company golf outing in front of all their peers, that's not going to have the same impact as if you sit down quietly at home and say, hard as it is, I need to move out of this relationship. It sets the stage for an entirely different process. And I think people don't and aren't encouraged to think as much about how you start is going to impact every step from there on.
Yes, how you start and what process you choose and the professionals you choose change the landscape completely. And so,
Right.
one of my questions to you is, would you recommend to people that they talk to several different lawyers, or certainly lawyers that do collaborative or trained in collaborative, and beware of client or lawyers that say they know how to do collaborative but aren't trained in it?
Yeah, definitely double down on that one. I think they need to definitely talk to several. Don't feel like you have to hire the first person you talk to. You don't, because you're entering your own little mini marriage with them. They're going to have one of the biggest impacts on your life of anyone you've ever been around, because divorce, especially the higher net worth or the more intricate you become, can really impact everything that happens afterwards. So if you're working with someone who's not a match, if you're a person who likes, quick, you're type A, you want quick answers, you don't need to spend a lot of time coddling, you're going to want one type of professional. If you really need to process and think through things and feel heard, you're going to want a different type of professional.
And do you think this is a time that people can and should listen to their gut?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think there's a link in the book, but I also, if someone reaches out to my office, I'll send them. It's a brochure on how to interview professionals. And I think people will, make a meeting with an attorney. They know their story, which is good. And a good professional will pull their story out of them and kind of triage. But if someone is just trying to engage them as a client and sell them, it's kind of easy to hear, I got you, and then sign up and write that retainer check or deposit check. But if the person needing the professional goes in with literally a written out list of questions and things to think about, not just stuff like, are you going to be working on my case? But when you walk into their office, how do you feel? Are there 10 people waiting and you had to wait an hour? Or are you greeted and taken back and taken care of right away? Are there papers everywhere and it feels like a maelstrom and craziness and it agitates you? Or is it soothing? Or does that not bother you? Like, really have a list of things that you want to match to who you're working with, because you're going to see a lot of them.
And I think it helps the lawyer to give them what your expectations are so they know if they're a good fit or if they can meet your expectations. Yeah, it drives me crazy when I've sat in consultations before when a client will come in and the lawyer doesn't really give them a chance to tell their story. The lawyer sees a few facts about their case and then starts spouting off statutes and the rules and tries to impress them, I guess. But and most of the time clients hire that because they think I've got a very knowledgeable lawyer. But if that's not a lawyer that can attend to their needs emotionally or meet their expectations with regard to communication styles, that can be a very bumpy relationship.
I agree. And I think it's also important to know how the spousal relationship is. Are they able to speak to one another? Is it there's so much animosity they can't even be in the same, house, restaurant, city, building, or, what are the dynamics there? Because that can help shape what that divorce is going to look like and how you support it. I had someone come to me last week and she really wanted to mediate, and we started talking about her situation, and she knew nothing of the finances, had no logins. They were locked. Everything personal was locked in a vault. Her spouse checked her email and passwords and all the things. When she asked if she could get access and she wanted to learn about their situation, flat out no. And I listen to that and go, well, I know you want to mediate, but I don't think you can, because mediation is voluntary. There's no discovery. And if you're already not privy, like you're not coming to the table equally or voluntarily, you probably need the court system to back you up.
And just for the listeners, Brenda, that don't know what discovery means, can you expand on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Discovery is a formal process, and I would bet it differs not just state by state, but jurisdiction by jurisdiction, where one side, and they are sides, the attorney and who they're represented, will request information of the other and vice versa. So both are saying, here's a list of all the documents that we want, all the information that we want. They submit it to the other side. They have a certain amount of time. Usually around here, it's 3 to 6 months that it takes by the time it's all wrapped up, because it seems no one really pays attention to the deadline, and then they get an extension. And then it's missing things, and then they submit for more information. So it can be a few months to many months, but it's basically asking for things that can be, ranging from tax returns, financial statements, retirement statements, health insurance information, personal property information, business information, if one owns a business, things like that. And then interrogatories are part of that process where each side is asking the other side questions. It's formal and it's through the court system.
And some of that might include the passwords and the sign-ins you mentioned a few minutes ago.
Exactly. Yeah. So the story there is, if people are trying to keep things secret, unless it's cash or barter, it's really hard to, because the court, if you're saying I'm not going to disclose that, then you can just get more aggressive. You can always get more aggressive. And then the court is going to say you need to disclose your financial information because it's marital and you don't get to keep it a secret, even if you might have during your marriage. Another big fallacy I'll just throw out here, because I hear it almost every single time. It does not matter whose name anything is in. People will say, we kept our finances separate. My checking account, savings account, retirement account, all the accounts are in my name and his are in his. They're still marital. It doesn't matter whose name they're in, unless it's a gift or inheritance, because there are always unlesses. But that's kind of a...
But even that you still have to disclose.
Exactly. You have to disclose everything. So discovery is a way of formalizing that can take a lot of time and cost money.
Nowadays, would you say it's true that unless it's cash in a lockbox buried in the backyard, there's a paper trail on most everything? Would that be a fair statement?
I think most everything. Bitcoin is a little questionable. And then barter. I have run into lately cases of barter, where services that one would normally be provided or be paid for, they're bartering to get something else they want, and there is no paper trail. And that really would be income.
Yes.
But there's no way to track that.
And the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is becoming more common, but is the bartering less common?
It might be something unique to my area. That I don't know. It's different financially here for sure than it was in Chicago. So I would think it's less common, but I'm seeing more of it.
Interesting.
And I think I see more of it in those cases where there has been divorce planning going on, meaning one party has been getting ready for a divorce for could be a significant amount of time.
So who would you like to read your book?
Anyone who is thinking about divorce and doesn't know where to start, to help them craft the best way to approach it for them.
And do you think they would find it helpful to use your vision board or any of the other tools that you offer in the book? That can you explain those again?
I do. I think it's kind of a library of tools, and I am relatively certain that there's going to be something in it for everyone.
That's great.
Who is at this beginning stage. Maybe
Yes.
someone is really well versed in finances. The financial part's not going to mean as much to them. Maybe the mindset part will. Or maybe they're really frustrated about thinking about co-parenting and what that looks like because, they've been the primary parent 100% of the time, and now they're looking at less, and that's really challenging. Then the family part might be more.
So it sounds like this book can touch anyone that's at the beginning of the process of a divorce.
Yep, that's really what it's meant for. Beginning and then mindset. There are some tips how to go through meetings and not be unnerved and things like that, because that can be challenging too.
But it sounds like a lot of your coaching tools and techniques are in the book, since Brenda can only be cloned to an extent, and that is through her book.
Yeah. And the thought is it is one to many. I wish we could all, especially those of us who would like to see a more respectful, gentler, less expensive, less damaging, less time consuming divorce process. It's a way to help encourage people to know that that's available to them. I think a lot of people don't even know that they have choices.
And do you believe for most of the people out there, if they could get a tool like your book, their divorces could be more gracious, more respectful, and more civilized?
I do. I think at the very least more efficient.
And that translates to financially efficient too, correct?
Yeah, agreed.
So reading your book could save the clients money.
Yes, and time. And time.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda, for spending some time with us today. Thank you for writing this book, because I want to share it with my divorce clients, the ones that come into me at the very beginning. And I think it will probably be a great tool for many, many today and in the future. So thank you so much for creating that based on your experience and your wisdom. I think it's a gift to many, many people.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And one little other footnote, just based on what you just said, I think it can help people be better clients for their professionals and not have as much frustration there. So if a client comes into you and they're understanding and prepared and they've got their documents and they're organized, then you're not going to spend a lot of your time sorting through that. And those are, for all of us, they're billable hours. So it can save both time and frustration and money.
I love what you said, but it makes them a better client, which lowers the lawyer's stress level and makes them look forward to taking care of the client.
Mm-hmm. That's the hope.
Well, thanks so much. And I hope to get to meet you in person one of these days when I'm driving through there. Our son is going to law school in Williamsburg, Virginia. So my brother lives over just 45 minutes west of Asheville. So we may be in your neighborhood and give you a call to go down and have something to eat at that train station restaurant where we have been before.
Mm-hmm. There's a new one there. It's really good.
Well, it's a very cool place to live, and I look forward to seeing you there one day.
All right. Thank you, Camille.
Thanks so much, Brenda.